Mayor Kleiss.
Thank you, President Gerger, and I really do appreciate the large crowd here tonight for the enterprise budget. I didn't expect this, but it's nice to see everyone come out in the community for this. But I have the honor to present the 2025 enterprise funds budget. This will be my last opportunity to do that. I want to congratulate Mayor-elect Anderson, who will be presenting budgets in the future, and of course all of the folks that who have been reelected and elected, and all the folks that will be serving here, and all of the folks willing to serve. Tonight's budget is the enterprise fund. And the enterprise fund budget is a little different than the budget that I presented in August, and then of course you approved at least the preliminary levy for in September. This budget is kind of like it says. It's the difference between this and the property tax is that these funds are not supported by property taxes. These are enterprise, meaning kind of like you would be for a business. They're supported by those who participate, and they're fee-driven. So there are 9 different enterprise funds that we have. But these are the things that we do not support. Of course, our general fund budget, our property tax support budget, is really that safeguard for all of our budgets. So the reason we make sure that we do things right here, because if for example, in debt service on any one of our capital projects in these budgets, if there wasn't revenue to come in, it would have to be backed up by the general fund. And we've seen that historically in the parking system during COVID. But these, and it's important to pay attention to these because we need to make sure they operate and continue to have the revenue that's necessary for operation. And these do have an effect on folks in the community and almost again in your daily life. But they are the nine that are listed. They're water, wastewater, hydroelectric, stormwater, street light, our refuse system, our parking system, the Municipal Athletic Complex, or referred to the MAC, and the Rivers Edge Convention Center. Those are the enterprises that we have. This is the budget that we're proposing. As you can see, water utility, wastewater utility are probably the largest. Those are the things that, again, you wake up in the morning, you turn your faucet on, or you turn on the shower. You want to make sure that is operating. Those are generated by fees. Those are generated by your utility bill. The same thing with our nutrient recovery, or still listed here as wastewater, because that's the way the funds are listed. But it's our nutrient recovery plant, where we take that waste and create energy. Hydro, again, the hydro's been around since it goes back to probably the biggest renovation was the 70s, but it goes even farther back than that. And that is another utility that produces energy and helps offset stormwater. All of what we do for stormwater really is what safeguards our system. Our safeguards, probably the most important thing, is the Mississippi River, one of the most important natural resources for us. It's where we get our water from. What we do with that is to make sure that when the stormwater, whether it's on a parking surface or whether everywhere else it is, streets, that we make sure that doesn't pollute our water. So that's a system in itself. Our streetlight utility, that is, there are streetlights throughout the community and all over the community, even in some parts of the town that, for everybody that's up here is represented by streetlights. But streetlight utility, that was a number of years ago. That used to be a general property tax, but we shifted to a streetlight. As you probably, many of you know, maybe not everyone knows, when we collect property taxes, 80% of the properties in St. Cloud pay property taxes, but 20% do not. And those are nonprofit. And a lot of those 20% that do not really do still have a cost. And probably one of the areas that you notice the most probably is the streetlights, because streetlights are an issue of safety. And because of that, it's done by a utility so that everybody is paying, not just those that are paying on your property taxes. And also in some areas of the city where you have a development, they may want some type of different lighting, maybe ornamental or some other way. This allows a higher rate in that case for those individuals that want that, so that everybody is paying into the system. So when we created that utility, we didn't just create it and then increase the cost. We've actually kept it in check pretty much over that period of time, with slight increases based on inflationary costs, but we've kept those costs down. Our parking system, of course, the parking system is downtown. And I'll get into that a little bit more, but again, that's the parking ramps, that's the lighting, the security, the safety, and all of that. That's part of that downtown parking system or the parking system. Refuse, of course, that's your garbage collection, and I'll get into a little bit that too, how we compare. Not all cities do that system. Some are done by private haulers, and I can give you a little bit of the and we do this a little differently too. Not all cities do that as an enterprise fund. Some of that is just built into their property tax. We do it as an enterprise fund because actually we encourage, by doing it this way, we encourage recycling. We encourage people to have less refuse. The cities that do it just as part of their overall property tax have folks that really doesn't matter who you are. The more in St. Cloud, the more garbage you use and the less recycling, the more it's going to cost you. In some areas, cities that don't do that, incorporate as part of it, do it a little differently as property tax. For us, it is a enterprise fund. The Municipal Athletic Complex, the MAC, again, it's paid for by people who use it, people who rent space out there, people who come to it, go to tickets, those who are part of that. Same with the Rivers Edge Convention Center. Those budgets are supported by the people who use them. Total amount that we're proposing in the 2025 is $56 million, and so again, separate from what the property tax budget is. Gives you a little idea, again, a little better than just the chart to show where most of that is. Most of that is in that water, wastewater, refuse. That's where the bulk of where you see most of this budget goes. A little bit of highlights of some of the capital outlay, or it's always I think the biggest highlight you have in here is you've got the rehabilitation and drainage and the scum well. People look for those types of appropriations, but you don't have a lot. Most of these things are in those utilities, and it not only on the one side gives you the price, but you have some things as to which utilities are paying them. Probably one of the more significant ones are the refuse trucks that we have, some of the vehicles, a street sweeper. You see some things on here, and there's a pretty significant cost. I mean, a lot of these utilities, you see that bottom part, that utility software replacement, that's a software replacement. That actually is benefits more than anything the consumer, to make sure that when you have the software so that you have an accurate billing, you have an up-to-date billing. It's a lot easier to do. It's easier access and that, so that's where some of those costs are. But it lays out the capital outlay in all of these funds. And then this is, I think, important so that people see this, because we have that property tax supported budget, and we're very cognizant of making sure this is no different than when I talk about that budget. This is not my money. It's not the council's money. This is your money. So we make sure that we do this in a way that is respectful for the fact that these are costs that everyone has to pay on a daily basis, and we want to make sure we keep people in their homes. So we don't want to have prices, and we don't want to take, okay, so we won't put this on your property tax, we'll just jack up these fees in this other area. We don't do that. We actually have, we're among the lowest, as the chart I show you when we do the property taxes. If you look at the property taxes, we are far below what the average property taxes is statewide, and we're very cognizant of that, and we're respectful of that, because it's, again, keeping people in their homes so they aren't being taxed out of their homes. And we also don't want to just shift that to fees. We're very cognizant of that also, and these are some of the lowest fees. If you look at especially your water, your wastewater, and your stormwater, these are the things that you really can't do without. I mean, you could maybe do without going to the MAC or to the River's Edge or parking downtown, but you can't do without water and sewer and that stormwater utility. So if you add those up, these are the cost. The 2024 is the red box, and the blue box is the 2025 proposed rates. And you look at this comparison, I think it's important. That's why we compare property taxes. I think it's important to compare fees, especially in the region, because people can live wherever they want to live. And obviously we want to look at how we compare that as a city. We're, again, lower than all the other area cities. You'll see a little asterisk on Sauk Rapids and Waite Park. That's because we don't have their 2025 rates yet. That's why you'll see that. More than likely, can't speak for those cities, more than likely you'll see a bit of an increase. But even without that, St. Cloud still is low, both this year and what's proposed. In this overall enterprise budget that I'm presenting to you, we are not adding any additional fees. There are no additional fees added. The only fees that are part of a plan, if you look at water and sewer, we have a 5-year program where you see those, but those were approved a number of years ago. We're not adding any new fees, and we're not adding any additional piece to that. So this budget is keeping the fees where it's at. So again, keeping the fees flat. There's no increase in this budget, as the same case as the general fund with the property tax. We're keeping that flat, capturing the growth. This gives you, and this is when you look at residential. So these are the residential piece, but we often have a discussion, talk about what's the most important area where almost every employer is looking for and every individual is looking for housing. Housing's an important piece. So how do we compare for those costs to build housing? One of the biggest costs oftentimes is not only the material and the labor and interest rates, but you look at what are those utility, our sewer and access charge, our water access charge. These are SAC and WAC fees. What are those fees? And how do we compare to areas around? And by the way, on the residential, this is a comparison to our area here, but St. Cloud, if you take statewide, we're still in the bottom 10% statewide for water and sewer. So that includes all of the communities around here. This is just giving you the local one, but we're still in the bottom 10%. This gives you the area's development fee comparisons. So this, again, I have to caution again with the little asterisk on Sauk Rapids and Monticello. We still don't have what their next year's fees are going to be. But these are development costs, again, where St. Cloud is. In single family, the blue line there is single family new development fee per home. And if you look at the teal one, that's multifamily development fee per unit. So you can see, again, we're lower than the other areas, and this is for looking at the fees here into 2025. That's including what that rate increase was done a few years ago, and we phased it in, 0 the first year, 25, 50, and 75 going forward. But still, even with that, we're tracking below what those development costs are locally. This gives you, and I gave you this slide in the last couple of years because I think it's good because people want to know how are we doing. We've done some changes in development fees, as we said before. Did that have a change? Did that lower the amount of single family or multifamily based on what we're seeing for 2024? If you look, this takes you back to 2021. The blue on the bottom is single family. Number of units in development agreements. So these are units that are already in development agreements. If you look at, that's why you see the estimate in 2024. We haven't finished this year out yet, and you'll see what we estimate in 2025 that are in there. So you see an increase, from 2023, especially pretty significant in the area of single family, which has, I think, been a goal. And you see also a pretty good percentage going forward in that multifamily. So both in 2024 this year and in 2025. That was part of the discussion when we looked at development fees. We said, well, it's going to stifle all of that. We haven't seen that. We've actually seen an increase in those years, both in 4 and 2025. So that's looking at how we're looking at what the sewer and water as part of that development. So it gives it's healthy, and it's needed because obviously housing is still the number one need for almost every employer in this community. Parking. This is it's the 3 Ps that Mayor-elect Anderson, you're going to hear a lot about. Parking, plowing, and potholes. Parking is, I don't know of a mayor anywhere in the city, in the country, that doesn't have a parking issue. And if one has solved it, I'd love to know how that is, because no matter what you do in parking, folks are not happy with it. Everyone would love parking to be free. And everyone, lots of suggestions. We should have parking free downtown, parking free spots. Now, we go to the meters. Now, meters is kind of a premium, but we have 2,360 free parking spots downtown, 5 o'clock and after, and free on weekends. That includes ramps. That includes 5 parking ramps and 5 surface parking lots. So that's not just parking ramps. That is also surface lots. So there are 10 different opportunities, either surface or parking. There are 2,360 free from 5 to the evening and then on weekends. And that is daily. And this map shows you where those are. But we do have, and we went through a pilot program, and I don't know of any city anywhere in the country that did a pilot program that went out almost 2 years. It was well over a year and a half, where from the beginning of the pilot program, we did administratively as far as we could go. I think we tried it. We did 6 months, and then we brought it to you to extend that pilot program. But every step of the way, we adjusted the pilot program, hearing feedback, which was pretty significant. And so I believe it's a strong, I mean, does everyone want to have free parking downtown? Of course. Everyone, I think, in this room would like to have no property taxes either. Of course, if you answer that question, yes, you want free parking. But free parking downtown comes at a cost to somebody because you can't make it free. It's somebody's going to have to pay. So we did a little, I had, Deanna did a little analysis of what if we took away the parking fees downtown? What would that cost? Well, we know where it has to go, because if you're not paying it in this enterprise fund, it has to be in a property tax supported fund. So we would have to shift it. If you took all of this away and made that free, if you look at debt service and everything else we do, you're looking at about $2.5 million. So on an average home, the average price home, I think it's $235,000. So on a $235,000 home, that would be an additional $80 in a property taxes, an additional $80 in property taxes for the year. So that would just fall on 80% of the properties in St. Cloud, because 20% of the properties don't pay property taxes. So if I live in St. Joe or Sartell or Wade Park or Sauk Rapids, yes, make parking free downtown, because it'll be free for me. But if you live in St. Cloud, you would be paying additional property taxes to do it. So that's where the balance is. That's why we created the pilot, making the fees for the meters a little higher, and then we try to be cognizant of what people who work downtown. And we also look at how those are. We don't just say we need this amount of money. How do they rate in other cities? Now, if you look at, and this is always tough because there are cities that have no meters, but they tend not to be smaller cities where you can walk from almost any residence in the town to the downtown. In urban areas, in particular regional centers that have convention centers, and I would dare to say that probably the four major urban regional centers are St. Cloud, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Rochester, and Duluth. I mean, those are the cities we look at. So how do we compare with their permit or their rates? These are downtown parking rates for St. Cloud, Rochester, Duluth, and Minneapolis. This is what your on-street parking. So again, when you look at the actual cost per hour for meters, we're not much. Not much different, but if you actually start looking at some of those cities, they have a range, and I know that range because I went to, if you go down to a Vikings game, or even if you don't go to the game, if you go to the game, you're going to be paying $60, $50, $30 for parking, but if you actually go to a meter down there, you're going to be paying more per hour for that meter, if you can find a meter at that time, and that's where the ranges come in. We just have the same fee across the board. If you look at the permits on a monthly permit, by far the lowest if you look at all those cities. If you look at surface lots permits on a monthly basis, by far the lowest in those areas. If we were to take away meters, what would happen is we'd lose that small revenue because those employees would be parking in front of those businesses, and then there would be no turnover. So it gives you a little indication of what those comparisons are in the downtown, and especially in the parking area. Area city rate comparisons when it comes to refuse. We've done a number of studies over the last, since I've been mayor. We've studied this at least 3 times where we compare what our rates are to what other cities are, because we often get the discussion, maybe we should look at how we do this in a private way, or privatizing these types of things. And in some cases, it absolutely makes sense to look at that analysis, and that's why we've done it every few years. This gives you a little indication of what you're paying in St. Cloud. Even we have a bag system, and that's unique. And I don't know of any system in the country that has the bag system where you pay based on how much you use. And most people, on average, use 1 bag a week. So, if a larger family, you may use more. But we also give you the option. You can have the cart. I mean, we do carts like other cities, so you can have a cart, you can have a bag. But even with the bag, it's about $18.30. If you look at other cities, and this is a little harder to do because a lot of cities have more than one contractor, but if we average it out, this is kind of what those costs are. And you also have the St. Cloud's cart system. So again, the bag system is really the one that helps with the recycling, puts more into recycling because people are looking at what they're doing. But you look at the comparison, it really is a pretty good bang for the buck. And we do look at how, we would look at privatizing those types of services. And this, again, we looked at 3 times. Besides that, we also use in this utility, in this enterprise fund, a lot of our folks we use so folks that are driving refuse are also doing snow plowing. So rather than hiring different people when winter comes around, we can cross-utilize some of those employees and save taxpayers, both in the taxpayer-supported fund and in the enterprise fund, and still keep a pretty good price for the consumer. This is also, and this is a chart that I really like, because if you're living in those other cities and you're looking at a private hauler, nothing against private haulers, but what you do get, you look at St. Cloud, you look at all those checks, what you get beyond just the yard waste collection, from compost to, from all of the other additional mattress recycling. I mean, that's one of the challenges, I think, with a lot of people. We're the only city in the area that does that. And we just started just recently in the last few years charging a pretty nominal fee, but other folks don't even do it at all. So this is what you get for that lower cost than the other area cities, a list of services that are above and beyond. I think based on the 3 studies we've done, and I can't imagine in the future, we'll probably still look at that analysis again, but it's a pretty good bang for the buck. Our folks do a really good job of keeping those costs down. Compost, again, that's a piece too. That's I should announce, I suppose, I think the compost closes this weekend, the last weekend, and then the bags will be collected next week, Monday. That's the last opportunity for folks to get that out for this year. But again, comparable, and I know not we're competing, but I think our compost, our site is better than some of these other sites. What you get is you have an attendant that they're 5 days a week. Plus, for this low cost, you still have additional things that you don't see. It's exceptional. The compost that you can get, you can come if you have a permit, you can pick up the compost. It's really good quality that folks can utilize that we have there. So you do get a pretty good bang for your buck with this site. Enterprise funds. Now we're going to be going through a process. When I talked about the issue of looking at how we operate, we had some discussions earlier this year about looking at the River's Edge Convention Center as the operation. We did do an RFQ for that. We've gotten those back. We're going through that process. So there's still that potential. We're looking. We've actually had some response, which was great. So hopefully we'll be able to find an operator potentially to move forward with that. We'll have further discussions before we close out the year. But what happens now, a lot of the public input, we've gone through this process. Now this is on the city's website. Hopefully you all have in front of you the enterprise fund document. We'll be having some meetings with the council as we move forward, and then the public hearing on this will be set. I think you've already set that or will be setting that in your agenda, and that will be in the December meeting for the enterprise funds too. So that is the 2025 enterprise funds, and look forward to the public input on this. And all of that is up on our city's website at this moment. Thank you.